Hello and welcome to this highlight demo video on the new application from Gluware called Network RPA. Network RPA enables the ability to build no-code process automation called workflows using a drag and drop editor. It leverages the deep functionality of the Gluware application suite, providing a set of native tasks to build out custom workflows. Network RPA also supports third-party libraries. This includes the well-known open source project Stackstorm, which provides a library of packs with integrations with popular solutions such as ServiceNow and Jira, AWS, Slack, and many more. Advanced users can also build custom integrations using the low-code Gluware Lab solution. So let's take a look at how you build, test, run, and monitor custom-built process automation using the new Network RPA. So let's get started by signing into this instance. And we're going to land here in the dashboards, and we can start by looking at our inventory. This demo inventory has 20 devices. And to navigate into the new Gluware Network RPA, I'll draw your attention to the left-hand nav bar, and you're going to see a new icon. If you don't see it, it may be hidden in your more, or potentially you may not be at the right build, or you might not be licensed properly. But you should see Network RPA in your left-hand nav menu. And then we're going to navigate into the workflow library. Here in the workflow library is where you can import, export workflows. You can view them all by status like draft, test, production. You can search workflows. You can track the progress of the development state from test to production. We're going to talk about that a little bit in this demo. And you can continue editing workflows that are in a demo state. But primarily when you're coming to the workflow library, you're going to be either building new workflows or you're going to be running existing workflows. So let's jump into the creation of a new workflow in the workflow editor by clicking on the upper right option for new workflow. We'll call this highlight video. And once we've created the workflow here, we have the option to create it as public, meaning it will only be tied to my user, or public. And if we select public, we can also make it available to not only users within this org, but subordinate orgs that are created within your Gluware instance. And we also expose the role-based access control levels 1 through 5 here. So I'll keep it available to the most people here at level 1 and select next. So as the basics of the workflow gets created, you see the canvas here, and you see a start and an end with a plus icon. And here's where you get to navigate your tasks on the right-hand side, the Gluware tasks and third-party tasks, and you have the drag and drop canvas to drag them into and then configure and build out your custom workflows. So this first use case, we're going to create a very common one we get requested to with the application capability we have with drift and provisioning and notification, and we're going to combine them all into one to execute a drift, remediate if drift has occurred, and integrate email notification. So let's start by dragging in some tasks and then we'll configure them. So we're going to filter targets. I'll explain that in a minute. Then we want to do some drift actions. So we are going to capture current running configuration. So the config capture is running. And then we're going to run a compare of those snapshots. So again, in this video, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on the underlying app capabilities. Most of you would be Gluware users and understand how this works. Once drift or the capture compare has occurred, we want to create a conditional. So this is where we're going to click in and add a conditional. So what we want to add a conditional on is if the config drift status, so config drifted equals, and if it equals no, then we're in the good path. Then if it else, it goes down the else path. So we hit save. And basically what we want to do is if it's a no, it's going to proceed down this path. If it's a yes, it's going to go out down this path. And what we want to do is actually re-provision the device back to a known good config. So let's drag in the action to provision the device. And then we also are going to drop in our notifications. So on the good path, I'm going to send an email. And in the negative path, so to speak, where we've had a drift occur in remediation, I'm going to send an email as well. And then I could either terminate this leg, or I can continue on and let them both flow to the final end state. Just for demo purposes, I will go ahead and terminate this path of the logic, just to show you how you could terminate logic in the chain. So basically, this is the entire workflow. We've just built it out in a couple of minutes, and even with me taking some time to explain it. Now let's jump in and add a little bit of configuration. So filtering targets is really useful. Instead of hard-coding a target selection, you can dynamically build your target list based on filters and rules. So we're going to do a real basic one here. If the name contains, I want to say, Cisco, which is about 6 devices or so in my setup that have Cisco in the name, then they're going to match the filter criteria. So that's a save. So that is configured. You can see how the task goes from a not configured state to configured. So this is on the path where there would be no drift. So we're going to insert email notification. I'm going to email myself here, and it's going to be drift was not detected. And I'll just put that in the body as well, and I'll say what we can do here. The body is actually fairly interesting. The subject or a body is we can include variables like $, device name. So by doing $device name, that variable, we have a couple variables in the system that enable you to pull that in, and Gluware will print a line in the message for each device, and it'll give you the message device not detected. So we'll see that. So we hit save. And so this is the other path where drift has occurred, but we're going to remediate. So we're going to say drift detected and remediated. I got to make sure I include my recipient here, unless I'm sending into a known path. And then again, I'm going to use the $device name. Drift detected and remediated. So I hit save. So everything I've done here in just a few minutes, I've built out a fairly, a very useful type of operation that you have within Gluware, within the native apps. But what Network RPA is allowing you to do, or enabling you to do, is take those native capabilities and tie them together. Really go from task-oriented automation to process automation, and it can go much further. This is really just the starting point. So once you're happy with your edits, now you go through the kind of dev NetOps style of moving from test to production. So the very first thing you have to do with a workflow is save it. So workflow gets saved. The next thing you do is you go through validation. When you go through validation, validation will validate that all your tasks are configured properly, that Gluware believes are ready to run. Then you either run the test, and if you're running a test, you have to test against devices that are in a test designation versus a production designation. So we can hop over to Device Manager and look at that, but to save time here, we'll move on. These devices I'm running against are labeled as in production, so I'm going to just move this workflow to production. And it's going to say, are you sure? You haven't tested it. Let's go ahead and promote it. So now that workflow is here in my library. So to set up this demo, to actually see drift occur, get detected, and get remediated, we're going to jump into the config modeling app, into the node view. And we're going to just see that, we have this set of Cisco devices, and we're managing a number of features on them, from AAA and Banner and DNS and NTP and so on and so forth. So you can automate as much or as little as you want. What we're going to do is go in, actually kind of, not quite a backdoor, but we're going to do something you really shouldn't do, which is access the terminal and add or remove a command. So let's connect into this device. So we're going to hit the terminal. And this is kind of an out-of-band change. So we're simulating or causing a change here which would be an unauthorized change. We're not going through the proper execution of Gluware to do a tracked change where it would be considered, still in policy. We're going in and making essentially a manual change. So go into config T, IP name, make a real simple DNS change. Let's say an operator was trying to solve a quick problem and add in a new name server. So I just made an unauthorized change, right? So let's jump back over to Network RPA into my library. Here I have my highlight video use case here available in my library, and I'm going to perform the action to run it, to execute that workflow, so I could push it into a schedule or execute it right away. This is the type of workflow with drift and remediation I probably would want it scheduled. If I was running in production, I would want this to run, maybe every 24 hours and catch things like this. We have customers doing very similar things. So let's go ahead and execute this workflow. And it says, would you like to go to activity? So let's go into activity. Here in the workflow activity is where, again, you can see all the categorizations of the workflows. And I can see my highlight video is in production and is running, and we're 18 seconds in here. So I'm going to bring up the log view. This is the summary level log at the workflow level. Then on the right, you can navigate to different views. And so one interesting view to look at here is tasks. So the filter task that completed with 20 inbound devices, and when it moved on, it filtered to 6 devices. So with those 6 devices, it was executing the capture configurations, comparing them, and then moving on to determine if drift occurred or not. Just looking at this level, I can see down the good path of no drift. It actually already executed the send email and it's happy there. On the one that actually drift occurred, it had to go down that other path and is now provisioning that device. So another level of logging I'd like to show you is I jump into targets, and I can see all the targets. The ones in green are the ones that it ran against. This guy's still running against. I can see the running icon here. I can click right into the log of that device and actually see in real time what Gluware is doing. So Gluware is, again, because we're using our native stack to talk to this device, speak CLI and work in a declarative manner, we're checking the device configuration, and then in this case we're re-provisioning it, and we'll be updating this log all the way to completion of this task, which will have remediated it. So we can see here in the run log here, we're at roughly 2 minutes, or minute 59, and hit completed. So if I go back to my task view, I can see result is okay. And again, I scroll all the way down, and my open target list is sitting here at 1. And so we've completed. So now you can go into the apps and kind of dig further into these things, but let's go ahead and navigate to see the outcome here in terms of the email. So let me navigate over to that real quick. Okay, so the email came in, so I'm going to just move my email window down so you can see this. And you can see that the drift not detected email came in, and it's showing me the various Cisco routers here that drift was not detected and was okay. So let me show you the other email that came in. And this is telling me that drift was detected and remediated. So we should be good to go there. And so that's just a quick highlight. Again, trying to run through this relatively fast, give you a quick blow-by-blow of how you navigate into the workflow library. You go into the workflow editor and you build, and then you view and check out your results in the workflow activity. So let's take a look at one more quick demonstration here of a workflow. For this one, we're going to use a third-party integration, which is StackStorm. So let me just quickly touch on how StackStorm must be set up. In your settings of your org, there is an option for integrations, and similar to the Cisco API access, your StackStorm must be configured and enabled here. Test it, and then once you've loaded the packs in your StackStorm instance, click reload your packs here so they're pulled into Gluware, and then you should be good to go. Also on the StackStorm side itself, Gluware is automating or orchestrating on top of StackStorm, so Gluware doesn't install or maintain it for you. You have to have your StackStorm instance up and running and configured properly so Gluware can orchestrate it. In this case, I'm going to be orchestrating Jira. We use it heavily within Gluware, so I'm going to be opening an incident or an issue here with Jira. So I have Jira configured and it's all enabled. So let's jump back over to Gluware into my workflow library. And just to speed things up in this demo, I'm going to start with a workflow that is already in a draft state. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to edit that workflow. And just let me talk you through it really quickly. We're filtering targets the same way. We're picking up all the devices with the Cisco name. Then we are applying a condition right away. Gluware is storing a lot of information about those devices based on our deep discovery. So we can use any of those fields and then provide operations. So one of the things that we're doing is we have integration with Cisco for things like PCerts. We also have NIST CVEs. So we're saying a conditional to say if critical advisories are greater or equal to 1, I want to know about it. So this is something that customers have asked us for. We have the capability within our app, but we can't look at the number and then check the number, then auto email you based on that. Now, using a workflow, you can do that. So if the critical advisory is greater or equal than 1, then this is where we're going to leverage a third-party task. And just so you can see here, let me minimize some of my Gluware libraries here. Navigate down a little bit here. StackStorm AWS, StackStorm ChatOps, StackStorm Core. Here's Jira, and basically all I did was drag and drop my create issue into this workflow. And in the workflow, it's kind of minimum variables and things I want to feed in here, including a summary, a task, the type that it is, which is a task, some text that's going to go in the description, the project board I'm putting it on, which I call demo, and that's it. So this task should be good to go here. So let's go ahead and then email, which you've seen before. We're going to send, if there's nothing happening, or we'll send an email saying that there are no devices with criticals, right? And if it does go down this path, it will say there are devices with critical advisories, and then you will get a list of what those devices are. So that's the logic here built out in this workflow. So again, this can help you to enhance your security profile, as well as just stay on top of the issues coming in from the vendors. So we do a validate, and then let's go ahead and move it to production. Here it is, and so let's go ahead and run it manually. Again, we could schedule it, we could trigger it with an API. Let's run it, execute, and go to activities. And here we go. So completed in 6 seconds, and that might seem very quick. That's because Gluware is operating on the data in the database already. We didn't insert any action that required a rediscovery of the device information or a request back out to the Cisco API. So what we can see here is it looked at all the devices in my, again, 20 devices. It filtered it down to 5. It then sent an email for 1, and then it sent an email for another 5. So let's just go ahead and navigate over to the demo board, and here I am in Jira, and I can see that this came in. Gluware workflow detected critical advisories. So that integration did work, and I've been doing numerous testing, as you can see here, but that did open up the issue on Jira. And then for just the completeness of this demo here, let me also navigate over to email, and I can show you the 2 emails that I came in. So one email came in that the Cisco N9000V has no critical advisory, so that's good on that device. However, on the other 5 devices in my list there, all these CSRs have critical advisories. So again, if this was a production network, I would obviously be much more concerned, and I would have to take action to resolve that. So back on the Gluware Network RPA, walked you through the basics of jumping into Network RPA from the left nav menu, going to your workflow library. Again, this is where you're curating your workflows from test to production. You're running them. You can go into edit them. You can search through them. When you want to create your new workflows, you jump into new workflow. That's your workflow editor. And then when you're running and operating and looking at the status and logs, you're navigating into workflow activity. So with that, this concludes this highlight demo of Gluware's new Network RPA.